Rain hammered down on the Texas ranch as Frank Dalton swayed drunk in his saddle pistol, drawn and wavering between Kate Hayes and the man she just started working for. 8 years of anger, $1,000 stolen, and now cornered and humiliated, Frank had nothing left to lose. Kate stepped forward into the rain. Bandaged hands, no weapon, just a ledger and 7 words that would either save them all or get someone killed. Here's my offer, Frank. Leave tonight. The gun shook in his hand. One wrong move, and this Texas night would end in blood. But 3 weeks earlier, Kate Hayes had arrived in this same town with nothing but a carpet bag, a Winchester rifle, and a letter that said 7 different words. 7 words that had cost her everything. Annie Wheeler was 9 years old when she learned that sometimes love means letting go. She stood on that Texas platform coughing blood into a handkerchief already stained yellow with age. Her father, Tom Wheeler, was somewhere out on a ranch stealing money to save his daughter's life, and she didn't know. 300 miles to the north, Kate Hayes, 31 years old, widowed and betrayed, was reading a letter that would change everything. 7 words on cheap paper. Found myself a local girl. Don't come. 2 women, one small Texas town, one cowboy with calloused hands and a wounded heart. What happened next would prove that sometimes broken pieces are the best materials for building something that lasts. The year was 1882, and Texas was as unforgiving as the sun that beat down on that Willow Creek station platform. Kate Hayes stood there alone with everything she owned in one carpet bag and a Winchester rifle that had belonged to her father. The leather grip was worn smooth from his hands and hers. The only thing left that proved she'd come from somewhere, that she'd been someone's daughter once. Her hands shook as she unfolded the letter again. She'd read it 17 times on the journey from Illinois. Each time she'd hoped the words would change. They never did. Robert Morrison's handwriting slanted left as if even his letters were trying to escape. The paper was cheap, the kind you bought when you didn't want to spend money on bad news. Kate had paid for her own stage ticket, $347 sewn into her corset lining. That was what remained of her life savings after Thomas died. After his brother took everything. After Springfield, Illinois decided a childless widow of 31 had no place in a town that valued fresh starts over second chances. The stagecoach driver had refused to meet her eyes when he dropped her off, just whipped those horses and left dust hanging in the air like a question nobody wanted to answer. Kate watched the stage disappear down the rutted road, carrying away her last connection to anything familiar. The town of Willow Creek sprawled before her, smaller than she'd imagined, smaller than the promises in those 7 letters Robert had sent. Letters that talked about a ranch, about building something together, about how Texas needed women willing to work hard and love harder. All lies. Mrs. Olson's boarding house stood at the end of Main Street, its paint peeling in strips like sunburned skin. A sign in the window said rooms were 50 cents a night. Kate did the math in her head the way her husband Thomas had taught her. She'd been good with numbers, good enough to keep the Miller family's accounts for 8 years, good enough to reduce their costs by 28% while improving the quality of every meal. Not good enough to keep her position after Mrs. Miller died and the new wife decided she wanted her own people. Kate paid for 3 nights, $1.50. After that, the good Lord would have to provide, as her mother used to say, before the fever took her. Kate didn't much believe in divine providence anymore, believed more in a Winchester and the willingness to use it. She set her bag down in the small room on the second floor. One window looked out over the street. She could see most of the town from here. The general store, the saloon, the church with its white paint brighter than anything else, like someone thought God needed help being noticed. Past the buildings, the prairie stretched endless. Brown grass, dust, sky so big it made you feel small just looking at it. Kate unwrapped the bandage on her right palm. The cut from this morning had bled through. She'd been trying to open her bag and the clasp was rusted. Cheap hardware. Everything about this journey had been cheap except the hope, and that had cost her everything. She heard it from Mrs. Olson first. Talk about the old Holbrook place. 5 miles out of town. Family died 2 winters back when the fever came through. Whole family gone in one terrible week. Their land sat empty now. Nobody wanted to claim it. Too much death in the soil, Mrs. Olson said. But the lumber was still there, scattered across 2 acres like bones of something that used to be alive. Kate made her decision before dawn. She walked the 5 miles as the sun came up, turning the prairie from black to gray to gold. Her feet hurt in boots meant for city streets, not dirt roads. But pain was just information. It told you that you were still moving forward, that you hadn't stopped yet. The Holbrook homestead looked worse than she'd imagined. The roof had caved under snow weight, 3 walls still standing stubborn against wind that had worn down better things. The boards lay everywhere, weathered gray by 2 years of sun and rain. Most of it was rotted. She could see that even from 50 yards away. But some pieces might still be good. Kate had watched her father build a barn once 20 years ago, back when her hands were small and her future seemed large. She remembered the geometry of it, the way the corners had to be square or everything would lean, the way the roof needed pitch so rain would run off instead of pooling. She remembered him saying that good construction wasn't about having the right materials. It was about knowing what to do with whatever you had. She pulled a whalebone stay from her corset, the kind of thing that would have made her mother faint. But mother was in Springfield soil and propriety didn't keep rain off your head. Kate used the stay as a lever, prying nails loose from boards. The wood groaned, her hands bled. She wrapped her palm with a strip torn from her petticoat. White cotton bloomed red almost immediately. No time for fussing. The crossbeam needed to go up before dark or the whole frame would collapse come the first real wind. By noon, she'd managed to drag 6 boards across the prairie grass. By 2, she had 4 of them standing upright, leaning against each other like drunk men trying to remember how to walk. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't even close to right. But it was hers, constructed by her own effort, built because nobody else would do it. That's when she heard the horse. Kate didn't flinch. She'd learned early that showing fear in a new place was like blood in water. It drew things. Her hand found the Winchester propped against the cottonwood tree. She'd heard the rider 10 minutes back. Kept the rifle visible but not threatening. Texas had already taught her that much in one afternoon. The man on the horse sat there watching her, just watching, making calculations she couldn't see but could feel. He was tall in that saddle, weathered like good leather. Mid-30s by Kate's reckoning, though men who worked outside aged in ways hard to measure. His voice came quiet. The kind of quiet that said he didn't need to shout to be heard. That beam's going to fall on you. Kate kept her stance wide, hammer loose in her grip. She didn't look up from her work. Then I'll build another. He dismounted slow and careful, the way folks do when they mean no harm, but want you to know they could manage plenty if they chose. His wagon was loaded with straight pine lumber that looked fresh cut from the mill. Not weathered gray like the pieces she'd been wrestling with. Real lumber, the kind that cost money. Got some proper pine here, he said, lifting one board like it weighed nothing. That green wood you're using won't last the week. Week's all I need. No, ma'am, I don't reckon it is. He set the pine plank against his wagon, pulled out another. The corner bracing on her frame was wrong too, she could see him noticing. Wind would take it sideways first good storm. She knew it. He knew it. The question was what he planned to do about it. Now Kate did look at him, really looked. Not old, just worn in, hands scarred from honest work, not fighting, eyes the color of creek water after rain. He was looking at her shelter like it was a problem that needed solving. Not looking at her like she was a woman who needed saving. There was a difference. Kate had learned to spot that difference fast. Show me, she said. He moved to the corner she'd started. No flourish about it. Set the brace at an angle that made sense once you saw it. Showed how the force would distribute proper instead of pushing everything sideways. Kate watched close, then mirrored his movement on the opposite corner. He nodded once. Handed her a real hammer without comment. The weight of it felt right. Solid. She adjusted her grip, once drove the nail and 2 strikes clean. They worked without much talking as the sun bled orange across the prairie. Him cutting boards to length. Her following his lead on the frame construction. When she saw what he was doing, he stopped explaining. When she had a better idea, like angling the roof boards steeper for a rain runoff, he adjusted without any prideful fuss. The frame stood solid as the last light faded. Not pretty, but it would hold. Samuel Bennett, he said, loading his tools back in the wagon, but leaving half behind, including the good hammer. Ranch is 6 miles north, just past the big cottonwood stand. Kate Hayes. I'll be back tomorrow, Mrs. Hayes, with more lumber. I don't take charity, Mr. Bennett. Not offering any. Just figure if you're going to build something, might as well build it right. He climbed onto the wagon seat, gathered the reins, then reached behind the seat and pulled out a canvas bag, set it on the ground between them. There's jerky in that bag, he said, and some Arbuckle's coffee, the real stuff, not chicory. Then he was gone, wagon wheels cutting ruts through the buffalo grass, leaving Kate with a frame that would stand the night and tools that promised tomorrow meant something. She settled against the big cottonwood as the stars came out, that Winchester across her knees like her daddy taught her. The shelter wasn't much, wouldn't keep rain out yet, wouldn't hold heat, but it was hers, built with her own hands, her own blood, her own choosing. The letter in her pocket didn't matter anymore. Robert Morrison and his local girl didn't matter. Even the $347 didn't matter as much as it had this morning. What mattered was the frame standing solid against the Texas wind, and the strange certainty that tomorrow Samuel Bennett would return with more lumber. Not because she needed saving, but because good frames deserve good roofs, and he'd seen her drive those nails true. Kate unwrapped her palm, studied the cut in the moonlight. It would scar, certain as sunrise. Good. Some things ought to leave marks. Remind you of the pace of building something real. What Kate didn't know as she fell asleep under canvas and stars was that Samuel Bennett had found something in his wagon on the ride home. A newspaper from 3 weeks back. The Willow Creek Gazette, still folded to the classifieds page. An advertisement circled in pencil. Wanted cook and bookkeeper for working ranch. Must be capable and willing. Room and board provided, $20 monthly. Inquire at Bennett Ranch, 6 miles north of Willow Creek. Sam hadn't been helping her out of kindness alone. He'd been testing her, watching to see if this woman who showed up with a carpet bag and a Winchester had the grit to make it past the first hard day, had the sense to learn when taught, had the stubbornness to keep going when easier choices were right there waiting. She'd passed every test. Now the question was whether she'd take the job when he offered it, and whether she'd still want it when she learned what taking that job would cost. But Sam Bennett was a patient man. He'd learned patience from his mother, who'd been a mail-order bride herself. Came from Ohio expecting one thing and found something completely different. His father had offered her work instead of marriage, offered her a choice instead of a cage. They'd married 4 years later, when trust had grown deep enough to hold the weight of forever. Sam figured he could offer Kate Hayes the same thing. Work first, trust earned. Everything else would come, or it wouldn't. Either way, the ranch needed someone who could cook and keep books, someone who wouldn't run at the first sign of trouble, someone who knew that building anything worth having meant getting your hands bloody and not complaining about it. He'd found that someone today. Now he just had to convince her to stay. The next morning came up hot, the kind of hot that made the air shimmer like water. Kate woke with her back against the cottonwood and her hands throbbing. The cuts had swollen overnight. Not infected yet, but headed that direction if she wasn't careful. She unwrapped the bandage, poured water from her canteen over the wounds. It stung like fire ants. She wrapped them fresh with clean cloth torn from her other petticoat. She was running out of petticoat, running out of most things. The coffee Samuel Bennett had left was real Arbuckles, like he'd said. Kate rationed herself to half what she'd normally brew. Made it last. Drank it black while watching the sun come up over prairie that stretched so far it made you understand why people talked about the vastness of God. Out here, you were either part of something bigger or you were nothing at all. She heard the wagon before she saw it, that particular rhythm that meant somebody coming with purpose, not just passing by. Kate stood, brushed dust from her skirt, made sure the rifle was visible but not threatening. Same as yesterday. Samuel Bennett arrived earlier than she'd expected. His wagon loaded heavier too. 2 wooden crates, a toolbox, something wrapped in burlap that might be window frames. He climbed down carrying a basket covered with blue checkered cloth, set it on the flat rock she'd been using as a table, pulled back the cloth without ceremony. Biscuits, still warm enough to steam in the cool morning air. Figured you hadn't eaten proper, he said. Then he poured coffee from his own pot into 2 tin cups. Real coffee strong enough to float a horseshoe nail. Kate took the cup, let the heat soak through her rewrapped palms. "What's this about Mr. Bennett? Breakfast." "In business," she said. Not a question. He bit into a biscuit, chewed slow and thoughtful. Ranch owner habit, never rushing when you had time to consider. "Lost my cook 2 years back," he finally said. "Fever took her along with half the county that summer. Sarah Moss, 63 years old. Working for my father before me. Been making do since." He dipped his biscuit in the coffee. "Cowboys don't complain much, but they don't stay long either. Hard to keep good hands when the food's burnt and the books are worse." Kate sipped her coffee, watching him over the rim. The morning sun caught the gray threading through his brown hair, the deep lines around his eyes from squinting into distance. This was a man who'd been carrying weight for a while. "Ranch house has quarters," Sam said. "Separate entrance, lock on the door from inside. $20 monthly plus found. Need someone who can cook for 8 men, keep books, manage supplies. Maybe work the garden if there's time." "Why me, Wissam?" "You work steady, you learn quick. You don't not need explaining twice." He gestured at her shelter. "And you're sleeping under canvas with a Winchester for company. Seems you could use the work." Kate stood, walked to her shelter, reached into the canvas bag she'd been using for storage, pulled out her mother's ledger, leather-bound and worn. The one thing besides the rifle she'd never sell. She carried it back, set it between them on the rock, opened it to pages covered in neat columns. Dates, items, running tallies. "Kept books for the Miller family in Springfield," she said. 8 in the household. 2 hired men. She turned pages, let him see the careful organization. Managed purchasing, counts payable, inventory, tracked seasonal costs against yield. Her fingers stopped at the final entry. "Until Mrs. Miller died and Mr. Miller remarried. New wife had her own ideas about staffing." Sam studied the columns. His finger traced down the monthly tallies, stopped at the bottom sums. "You reduced their cost by near 30%. 28% while improving quality of meals." She closed the ledger. "What really happened to your cook?" "The truth this time." Sam looked at her direct, measuring whether she'd believe him. "Told you the truth? Sarah Moss, natural death, peaceful as dying comes." He stood, walked to his wagon, pulled out a smaller ledger, his ranch books. "These are my records, or what passes for them." Kate opened it. Chaos. Numbers scratched out, written over. No clear system. Some pages water-stained, others torn. But underneath the mess, she could see the bones of a working ranch, profitable if managed proper. She ran her finger down a column, turned back 2 pages, found what she was looking for. "You're losing money on every cattle sale. Middleman's taking 15%, and when it should be 8, maybe 10 at most. Suspected as much, can't prove it without proper records." "I can prove it. Give me a week with these books. I'll show you where every penny's going." She closed the ledger, handed it back. "But I have conditions." "State them." "Sunday half-days, use of a horse when needed for errands. No personal services beyond cooking and books. I'm not washing clothes or mending shirts. And if any of your men get notions about what a woman alone might offer you, back me clear in public." Done. No hesitation. No haggling. "I haven't said yes." "No, but you're negotiating terms. Means you're thinking yes." He pulled a brass key from his vest pocket, set it on the rock between them. Heavy for its size, brass worn smooth from handling. "Quarters are ready now. Bed dresser, washstand, stove for heat come winter. You can look before you decide." Kate picked up the key. "When would you need me to start?" "Now, if you're willing, load your things, ride back with me. Or tomorrow, your choice." She looked at her shelter. Canvas and pine. Blood and effort. 3 nights she could have slept here safely enough. But winter would come. Always did. And canvas wouldn't hold against Texas winter any more than pride would keep you fed. "Your men," she said. "They'll respect the arrangement. They will, or they'll find other work. No bluster in that, just fact. I don't keep men who can't follow simple rules." Kate watched him load tools into his wagon. Movements efficient and purposeful. The kind of man who said what he meant and meant what he said. No flowers in his words, no honey on his tongue. "I'll need to see the kitchen, the quarters. Meet the men." "Fair enough." They loaded her few possessions into the wagon bed. The carpet bag with 2 dresses and undergarments, the Winchester and box of cartridges, her father's coat, the salvaged supplies from the Holbrook place, her mother's ledger. Not much to show for 31 years of living. But it was hers. The wagon seat put them close but not touching. She could smell lye soap on his clothes, leather oil from the rains, coffee on his breath. His hands on the leather were steady, scarred across the knuckles from old breaks. Working hands, honest hands. "Why'd you really come back yesterday?" she asked as they rolled through the grass. "With the lumber." "Told you. Didn't want to bury you." "That's not all of it." The wagon rolled on, wheels creaking in steady rhythm. A jackrabbit burst from the grass, bounded away in zigzag panic. Sam adjusted the reins, said nothing for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "My mother was a mail-order bride from Ohio. Man who sent for her died of snakebite 2 days before she arrived." He kept his eyes on the horizon. "She had $17 and a trunk of books. My father found her trying to hire on at the hotel, offered her work instead. They married 4 years later." "That why you helped me?" "No." He looked at her sideways. Quick glance. "Helped you because you were doing it wrong and I can't abide bad construction." Kate found herself almost smiling. Almost. "The quarters, they really have a lock. Best money could buy. Ordered from Dallas." The ranch appeared over a low rise. Main house 2-story, painted white some years back. Paint now worn to gray wood in places, but the bones were solid. Barn huge and well-maintained. Bunkhouse with smoke rising from the chimney. Various outbuildings. Smokehouse. Tool shed. What might be a chicken coop. Everything squared proper. Built to last. 3 cowboys stood by the corral watching the wagon approach. Another appeared from the barn, all of them looking at Kate, measuring what her presence meant. "Second thoughts?" Sam asked. Kate straightened her spine, lifted her chin the way her mother had taught her. "No, but I want 25 monthly, not 20. He pulled up the wagon, considered. 22, 23, and first month in advance. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Done." The cowboys were walking over now, curious but trying not to show it. Kate could see the questions in their faces, the doubt, maybe hope for better meals. She'd faced worse. The Millers' hired men had taken 3 weeks to accept her authority in the kitchen. These couldn't be harder. Sam came around, offered his hand to help her down from the wagon. Brief contact, his calloused palm against her bandaged one. Steady pressure that spoke of strength held carefully in check. She stood on Texas soil again, but different soil. Soil that came with walls and a roof and a locked door. "Boys," Sam said to the gathering men, "this is Mrs. Hayes. She'll be cooking and keeping books. She starts today." Mrs. Hayes, not Kate, not the abandoned woman. Mrs. Hayes with position and authority. The oldest of the cowboys stepped forward, Scottish from his accent, though the words came clear. 40-something, solid build, eyes that had seen trouble and learned from it. "Ma'am, welcome. I'm Will Cooper, foreman. The men are very happy about the cooking." Before Kate could respond, she heard it. Hoofbeats on the road coming fast from town direction. Everyone turned to look. The rider came through the gate without slowing. Pulled up hard near the wagon in a spray of dust and small stones. Young man, maybe 33. Face flushed with drink despite the early hour. His shirt was stained, his eyes bloodshot. He sat that horse like he'd forgotten how fighting the reins when the animal wanted to calm. "Sam," he said, words slightly slurred, "heard you picked up Robert Morrison's leftovers." The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Kate felt every man go still. Waiting. Sam's voice came flat and cold. Cold as creek water in January. "Frank, you're drunk and you're leaving." Frank Dalton swayed in his saddle, caught himself on the horn. His gaze found Kate, bloodshot eyes trying to focus. "Just wanted to see the woman who thinks she can waltz in here. Take over Sarah's kitchen." His tongue was thick with whiskey and anger. Old anger that had been fermenting for a while. "Heard all about you in town, the abandoned bride, the charity case." Kate stepped forward before anyone could stop her. She'd learned long ago that letting men speak for you was the same as having no voice at all. Mr. Dalton, is it? I've seen your bookkeeping. Interesting arithmetic you practice. Frank's face went red then white. You don't know nothing. I know 28 and 15 make 43, not 35. I know November's cattle count was off by 6 head. I know enough. Sam moved between them, not aggressive, just present, a wall that Frank would have to go through to reach Kate. Frank, ride out, don't come back. Frank wheeled his horse, nearly fell, caught himself. The animal danced sideways, scared by the drunk man pulling hard on its mouth. This ain't over, Sam. Not by half. He looked at Kate again, eyes trying to focus through the whiskey haze. Watch yourself, woman. Accidents happen on ranches. He spurred his horse too hard. The animal bolted through the gate at a gallop, nearly unseating its rider. They watched until horse and rider disappeared down the road. Dust settled slow. Nobody spoke. Will Cooper broke the silence, his Scottish accent thicker than before, the way it got when he was angry or scared. Ma'am, perhaps we should show you the kitchen now. Kate followed him, legs steadier than her stomach. The other cowboys dispersed, but she felt them watching. Testing already started, and she hadn't even seen the stove yet. The kitchen door stood open. Smoke inside, not thick but persistent. On the stove, a pot of beans had turned to carbon. The rest of the kitchen was dirty but organized underneath the neglect. Good bones beneath the grime. Kate turned to find all 8 men crowded in the doorway, Sam among them, waiting to see what she'd do. Whether Frank Dalton's threats would send her running back to that canvas shelter by the cottonwood. Dinner's at 6 sharp, she said, voice steady, clear. The voice she'd used when managing the Miller household, when 8 people and 2 hired men had depended on her to keep everything running smooth. Any man late goes hungry. Kitchen's closed to everyone but me, unless invited. Questions? The youngest cowboy stepped forward, barely whiskered, eager as a puppy. What's for dinner? Kate surveyed the smokehouse through the window, calculated what she'd glimpsed in passing. Beef stew if I can salvage these beans. Biscuits if the oven draws proper. Preserved peaches if I find any. Coffee that doesn't taste like mud. The boy grinned wide. The others relaxed by degrees you could measure in the dropping of shoulders, the loosening of fists. Out of my kitchen, Kate said. Not harsh, but firm. All of you. Work to do. They scattered, all but Sam. Frank's dangerous when he's drinking, he said quiet. And he's always drinking now. The books show he's been stealing steady for months. I know. Can't prove it legal, but I know. Sam moved toward the door, stopped. The shotgun behind that door. It's loaded. You know how to use it. Yes. Good. He left without another word. Kate stood alone in the kitchen. Her kitchen now. Smoke still lingered from the burnt beans. She opened windows, started the water pump, filled a pot for soaking the salvageable beans, found the supplies, took inventory, flour, salt, lard, coffee, preserved goods on shelves dated in careful hand. Sarah Moss's writing. 2 years old, but probably still good. She rolled up her sleeves. The split in her palm pulled tight but held. The stove needed cleaning first, then the table, the counters, the floor. Make it hers through work, through competence, through feeding 8 hungry men better than they'd been fed in 2 years. By 4 o'clock, the kitchen smelled right. Beef browning, onions softening, beans salvaged and simmering. The biscuit dough came together under her hands in familiar rhythm from years of practice. She found Sarah's notes tucked behind flour canisters. Oven temperatures. Cooking times. Which cowboys didn't eat pork? Who needed extra portions? Danny, the young one, appeared at the door. The eager puppy. Ma'am, Mr. Bennett said to ask if you need wood split. Tell Mr. Bennett the wood box is full. What I need is men to stay out from underfoot. Danny grinned. Yes, ma'am. Sure smells good, ma'am. He scampered off. Kate shaped biscuits with a water glass. No proper cutter, but it worked. Into the oven temperature checked with her hand like her grandmother taught her. This oven ran hot. Sarah's notes were right about that. At 5:30, Kate set the table in the main room. 8 places, matched plates from a set that had once been 12. Good silver tarnished but solid. She polished each fork with her apron. Set them straight and proper. The door opened. Sam entered. Stopped short at the sight of the formal table setting. We usually eat in the kitchen. Not anymore. Men work hard. They deserve to eat civilized. He studied the table, then her. Dust covered him head to toe. Fresh scratch across his jaw from some ranch work that had fought back. I need to wash. Pumps out back. Dinner's at 6. He left. Kate returned to her kitchen, pulled biscuits from the oven. Perfect golden, risen high, set them in a basket covered with clean cloth. The stew was ready, thick and rich, preserved peaches found and arranged in a glass bowl, coffee strong and clear, 5:55. Boots on the porch, multiple sets, shuffling and murmuring. Wash first, Kate called out, grumbling, but they went. She heard the pump working. Men jostling for position. Through the window, she saw Sam standing back, letting his men go first. When they finished, he washed thoroughly, water streaming down his forearms, scrubbing dirt from under his nails with the corner of his shirt. 6 o'clock exactly. They filed in cleaner than she'd yet seen them. Hair slicked back with water. Hands scrubbed pink. Danny had changed his shirt. They stood behind chairs, uncertain. Sit, Kate said. They sat. She brought the stew pot, ladled generous portions, set the basket of biscuits center table, the preserved peaches at the far end, poured coffee black and strong. Nobody moved. Eat, she said. Will Cooper took the first bite, his eyes closed. A sound escaped him that might have been pain or might have been relief. Mother of God, he said, his accent thick with emotion. This is meals. That broke the dam. Hands reached for biscuits, spoons scraped bowls. Danny grabbed 3 biscuits before Kate raised an eyebrow at him. He put one back, grinned, sheepish. These biscuits, said Tom quietly, they're like Sarah used to make. Better, Will said soft, then looked stricken. No disrespect to Sarah. None taken, Kate said. Sarah left good notes. I just followed them. The meal continued with the quiet intensity of hungry men eating well. When bowls emptied, Kate brought the pot for seconds. Every bowl extended toward her. After they'd finished, Danny started to rise. Kate stopped him with a look. You'll do nothing. This is my domain. You have yours. Yes, ma'am. But he smiled when he said it. The men filed out, murmuring thanks. Sam lingered as she'd known he would, questions in his eyes that needed answers only she could give. The books, he said. You started looking at them. Kate dried her hands on her apron, chose her words carefully. Someone's been stealing from you, Mr. Bennett. Small amounts, steady drain, about $40 monthly for at least 6 months. His jaw tightened. Frank. That would be my guess. But there's more. She moved to the counter where she'd left the ledger open. These entries here from last month. Different hand, different pattern. Someone else is skimming now. Who? Can't tell yet. Need to cross-check with store records, bank deposits. Give me 3 days. You certain about the theft? Numbers don't lie, Mr. Bennett. People do, but numbers don't. He stared at the ledger, knuckles white where he gripped the counter. I trusted him. 8 years Frank worked here. Trust and verification aren't enemies. They're partners. He looked at her then, really looked. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or the beginning of respect. You planning to verify me too? Kate almost smiled at that. Already started. Now he did smile. Just the corner of his mouth, but it counted. He left her alone in the kitchen as darkness settled over the ranch. Kate washed dishes thinking about Frank Dalton. Drunk, angry, humiliated. Dangerous combination in a man who knew the ranch. Knew the routines. Held a grudge. Through the window she saw movement near the smokehouse. Shadow where there shouldn't be shadow. She moved quiet to the back door. Eased it open. The shotgun stood in its place behind the front door, too far to reach quick. The shadow moved again. Not trying to hide now. Will Cooper stepped into the moonlight. Something in his hand. A ledger smaller than the ranch books. He saw her watching. Raised his hand peaceful. Ma'am, forgive me. I was checking supplies in the smokehouse. Making my own count. Why, because someone is stealing like you said. And when things go missing, they blame the Scottish first. Or the Irish. Anyone with an accent that marks them as different. He showed her the ledger. I keep my own records. Protection. Kate studied his face in the moonlight. Honest worry there. Maybe fear. the kind of fear that came from being suspected for things you didn't do just because of where you were born. Show me. They stood in the doorway. Will's ledger opened between them. His numbers matched what she'd found in the ranch books up until 6 weeks ago. Then the discrepancy started. You see it too, she said. See, but I don't know who, only that it's not me. I believe you. He looked surprised. Why, because a thief wouldn't keep records that could hang him. She handed back his ledger. Keep tracking. Compare with mine in 3 days. I, ma'am, and thank you for believing. He disappeared into the night. Kate locked the kitchen door, checked the windows. The shotgun stood ready by the front entrance. Tomorrow she'd go to town, check those store records, find out who was stealing now, deal with that problem. But tonight through her window, she saw a rider on the horizon, just sitting there, watching the ranch. Too far to identify, but she knew. Frank Dalton, waiting for something. But what Saturday morning came up hot and humid, the kind of weather that promised trouble. Kate dressed in her better dress, the blue one she'd worn to arrive in Texas, hair pinned tight and proper. Appearance mattered when you were already being judged. The buckboard waited outside. Sam was checking the harness one last time, his hands moving over the leather with the same careful attention he gave everything. Sure you don't want me to come along? His voice carried that particular tone men used when they already knew the answer, but asked anyway. I'm sure. Town folk talk more freely to women alone, especially about men's business. Frank might be in town. Frank's always in town on Saturdays, drinking at Murphy's Saloon by noon. Kate climbed up unassisted, took the reins firm. I'll be back by 3. The road to town cut straight through grassland ruts deep from years of wagon traffic. Kate kept the horse-steady mind working through what she needed. Store records, purchase orders, delivery confirmations. The thief had left a trail. They always did. She'd barely gone 2 miles when she saw the child. A small figure sitting beside the road. Not walking, not waiting for anyone visible. Just sitting there in dust and heat like she'd run out of reasons to keep moving. Kate pulled up the buckboard. The child looked up. A girl maybe 9 years old, thin as a fence post. Clothes that had been mended so many times the original fabric was hard to identify. But it was the handkerchief clutched in her small fist that made Kate's breath catch. White cloth stained yellow with age and spotted with something darker. Something red. Child, are you all right? The girl tried to hide the handkerchief behind her back. Quick movement that spoke of practice, of hiding things from people who might ask questions. I'm fine, ma'am, just resting, waiting for my pa to come back from town. Kate set the brake, climbed down slow, didn't want to spook the child. Up close, she could see more. The hollows under the girl's eyes, the way her chest hitched between breaths, the slight blue tinge to her lips that meant her blood wasn't getting enough air. Consumption. Kate had seen it before, had watched it take 2 of the Miller children over the course of one terrible winter. Where's your pa now? He's working at a ranch. The girl's voice was careful, practiced. The voice of a child who'd learned to lie to protect someone. He'll be back soon. What's your name? Annie Wheeler, ma'am. Kate went very still. Wheeler, Tom Wheeler, worked at the Bennett Ranch. Quiet Tom who kept to himself. Who'd been in town when those mysterious deposits went missing. Who had access to the books when Sam was away. Your father, his name is Tom. Annie's face lit up with something that looked like hope mixed with fear. Yes, do you know my pa? Kate looked at this child, this dying child sitting in the dust. And she understood in one terrible moment why a good man might steal. Why he might risk everything. Why $40 a month taken in small amounts might seem like the only choice when the alternative was watching your daughter drown in her own lungs. I know him. I work at the ranch where he works. Kate knelt down, ignoring the dust on her good dress. Annie, where are you staying? Where's your home? The girl's eyes dropped. Pa got me a place. It's fine. Show me. Annie led her to an old wagon, abandoned by the previous owner. No wheels, just a shell sitting on blocks at the edge of town where nobody had to look at it. Inside, a thin blanket, a box that served as a table, a candle stub. That was all. This was where Tom Wheeler's daughter lived while he sent money from the ranch. Money that should have been going to doctors, to medicine, to the sanitarium in El Paso that might save her life if they could get her there in time. But there was never enough money. Not when you were earning cowboy wages. Not when the sanitarium cost $50 a month, and eating cost money, and rent cost money, and everything cost money except dying. Dying was free. Kate made her decision. Annie, would you like to come to the ranch? Stay with me until your father gets back. The girl's face showed the war happening inside. Want fighting with the fear of being a burden. Kate knew that war, had fought it herself. I don't want to be trouble, ma'am. No trouble. I need help in the kitchen. Can you peel potatoes? Yes, ma'am. Hope won. Just barely, but it won. Kate helped Annie into the buckboard. The child weighed almost nothing, like holding a bird, all hollow bones and fragile hope. They rode back toward the ranch, Kate's investigation forgotten for now. Some things mattered more than account books. The cowboys looked surprised when Kate pulled up with a child beside her. Sam came out of the barn, confusion clear on his face. Then Tom Wheeler appeared from the bunkhouse. His face went white as chalk. Pop! Annie scrambled down from the wagon, ran to him. Tom caught her, held her like she might disappear if he loosened his grip. Annie, what are you doing here? His voice shook. You're supposed to be in town, safe. Mrs. Hayes found me, Pa. She said I could help in the kitchen. Tom's eyes met Kate's over his daughter's head. In that look was everything. Gratitude, terror, the knowledge that Kate now held his secret, could destroy him with a word. Kate just nodded. Annie will stay with me for a few days. Help me with kitchen work. You can visit her whenever you like. The relief in Tom's face was painful to watch. He mouthed the words, "Thank you." Come on, Annie, Kate said. Let's get you settled. As she led the girl toward the house, she heard Will Cooper's voice behind her. But we don't have room for... We do now, Sam said quietly. We do now. Kate knew she'd have to deal with the theft, have to confront Tom, have to make decisions about justice and mercy, and which one mattered more when a child's life hung in the balance. But not today. Today she'd feed Annie, get her clean, let her rest in a real bed instead of an abandoned wagon. Tomorrow could worry about itself. That night, Kate told Sam about Annie, about the consumption, about finding the girl sitting in the dust with blood on her handkerchief. She didn't mention Tom's theft. Not yet. But Sam was no fool. Tom's the one stealing, he said. It wasn't a question. I believe so. For his daughter. For medicine, for doctors, for hope. Sam sat quiet for a long time. Then he stood, walked to his desk, pulled out a metal box, inside books and coins. Not much, but enough. Sanitarium costs $50 a month, he said. This is $100, first month and deposit. Kate looked at him, really looked. At this man who could have fired Tom, had Tom arrested, could have chosen justice over mercy and been completely right to do it. You're going to help him. We're going to help him. You and me, that's what partners do. Kate felt something crack open inside her chest, something she'd kept locked since Thomas died. Since his brother took everything. Since she learned that the world was harsh and people were selfish and mercy was just another word for weakness. She'd been wrong. Sunday morning, Kate still needed to go to town, still needed those records. But now she went with Annie beside her. The girl was stronger after a night of rest and real food. Still coughing, but not as much. Still thin, but Kate could fix that with time. The church bells were ringing when they arrived, people filing in for services. Kate had no intention of attending. She had business at Morrison's Mercantile, and Sunday morning was the best time to find the store quiet. But Mrs. Henderson had other ideas. She stood outside the Mercantile with 4 other women clearly waiting. When Kate approached, they formed a line across the entrance, like a wall made of judgment and expensive fabric. Why, if it isn't Mr. Bennett's new help? Mrs. Henderson's voice dripped honey over poison. The pause before help stretched long enough to change the meaning. Kate kept her back straight. Mr. Morrison, I need to review the Bennett Ranch account records. Morrison appeared in the doorway, nervous eyes darting between Kate and the women. That's Mr. Bennett's private business, which he's asked me to manage. Unless there's a problem with his credit. No problem at all. Morrison pulled out a thick ledger, set it heavy on the counter. Kate opened it, ran her finger down the columns. There. Purchases that didn't match the ranch records. Tobacco, whiskey, ammunition charged to Bennett's account but never delivered to the ranch. She memorized dates, amounts, patterns. Interesting reading, Mrs. Henderson said, having moved closer with her flock of followers. Educational, Kate replied without looking up. Must be quite educational working so closely with Mr. Bennett. All alone out there, just the two of you. Now Kate did look up. Direct eye contact. The kind that made weak people uncomfortable. 8 ranch hands, Mr. Cooper as foreman, and a lock on my door. Hardly alone, Mrs. Henderson. Still people will talk. People always talk when they have nothing better to occupy their time. A younger woman at the edge of the group touched Mrs. Henderson's arm. Gentle, almost pleading. Kate recognized her from descriptions. Sarah Morrison, Robert's wife, the local girl he'd chosen instead. Perhaps we should, Sarah started. You're the one Robert Morrison was expecting. Mrs. Henderson's voice went sharp as broken glass. The mail-order bride. The store went silent. Even Morrison stopped pretending to arrange goods on shelves. Kate closed the ledger carefully. I'm the woman with a whipping wages, which is more than Robert Morrison can offer anyone from what I hear. Sarah Morrison's face flushed red as sunset. Her eyes dropped to the floor. Kate understood sudden and complete. This was the woman who had taken her place. But looking at Sarah's cheap brass ring, the gold paint already wearing through, Kate felt no anger. Only pity. Mrs. Hayes, Sarah said quietly, I wanted to say what he did wasn't right. Writing to you, making promises. I told him to write, explain proper, but he... She stopped, started again. He said let her figure it out herself. And I did. Sarah twisted that cheap ring around her finger. We're not doing well. The ranch, I mean. Robert isn't much for work, turns out. Through the window, Kate could see Robert Morrison lounging against a post, watching the saloon across the street with the look of a man who'd rather be drinking than breathing. His clothes showed wear, cuffs frayed, boots run down at the heel. Whatever Sarah had gotten by marrying Robert Morrison, it wasn't prosperity. I just wanted you to know. Sarah continued, her voice barely above a whisper. You're better off with Mr. Bennett. He's a good man. People respect him. I work for Mr. Bennett. Nothing more. Sarah's eyes went to Kate's left hand, bare of rings. Of course. I didn't mean... She backed away. Disappeared into the group of women who closed around her like water filling a hole. Morrison spoke up, eager to change the subject. These tobacco purchases you were looking at, those were picked up by Frank Dalton, signed it for right here. He showed the signature. 2 weeks after Mr. Bennett let him go. Kate examined the writing, Frank's scrawl, but also other signatures in the ranch books that looked similar but not quite right. Someone copying his methods. Someone still at the ranch. Mr. Morrison, I need copies of these pages. 6 months of records. While Morrison worked on the copies, Kate felt Sarah Morrison watching. The younger woman seemed to be gathering courage for something. Finally, she approached again, this time alone. Mrs. Hayes, could I speak with you privately? Kate nodded to Morrison and stepped outside. Annie waited by the buckboard, watching people pass with the quiet observation of children who've learned to be invisible. Sarah's hands twisted together. I need you to know I didn't steal Robert from you. He never wanted you in the first place. Kate waited. Let the silence stretch. People always filled silence with truth if you gave them enough time. He wrote those letters for money, Sarah said, the words tumbling out now. Your travel expenses. Thought you'd send funds ahead. When you wrote you'd bring payment on arrival, he... She stopped, started crying. We have debts, lots of debts. He gambles, drinks. I thought marriage would change him. It never does. He's talking about leaving me, going to California, says I'm not worth staying for. Sarah looked up, tears streaking her face. There's more. He's filing papers. A lawsuit against you. Kate's stomach went cold. For what? Breach of contract. Says you cost him money bringing you here. Stage ticket, room and board he promised. He wants $100. Kate almost laughed. Would have if it wasn't so pathetic. He wrote me 7 letters, made promises, then married you before I arrived. I know, but Judge Morton is his cousin, and Frank Dalton is helping him. Says you threatened him, made false accusations. This was worse than Kate had thought. A lawsuit meant going before a judge, explaining why she'd come to Texas expecting to marry a man who'd changed his mind, standing in front of the whole town while they picked apart her choices, her desperation, her failure to be wanted. When's the hearing? Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Thank you for telling me. Sarah grabbed Kate's hand. What will you do? Numbers don't lie, Mrs. Morrison. I have books proving every penny Frank stole, and I can prove your husband never paid a cent for my travel. Kate collected her copies from Morrison, climbed back into the buckboard. Annie settled beside her, quiet and observant. They were halfway back to the ranch when the child spoke. That lady was sad. Yes. Is she in trouble? She's in a situation, not quite the same as trouble. What's the difference? Kate thought about the difference between trouble you caused and situations that just happened to you, about Robert Morrison's selfishness and Sarah's bad choices, and how sometimes the two tangled together until you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Trouble is when you do something wrong. A situation is when something wrong is done to you. The trick is figuring out which one you're in so you know whether to fix yourself or fix your circumstances. Annie nodded like this made perfect sense. They arrived back at the ranch to find the barometer dropping. Kate checked it immediately. Sarah Moss's old barometer on the kitchen wall. The needle was swinging towards storm. Fast. Outside, cowboys were securing everything that might blow away. Sam and Will shouting orders. Danny and the others moving equipment, tying down tarps, bringing livestock closer to shelter. Tom appeared in the kitchen doorway, 38 years weathered into his face. He'd been avoiding Kate's eyes since yesterday, but now he looked at her direct. Mrs. Hayes, might I have a word in private? Kate nodded. They stepped into the small pantry, close quarters, no room for running, no room for lying. You know, Tom said, not a question. I know you've been taking money. I know why. I know how much. $130 over 2 months, plus 20 last night. His voice was steady, a man who'd made his decision. I kept records, every penny, called them loans in my ledger, calculated interest, planned to pay it all back. I saw. Annie's dying. The steadiness broke. The doctors say consumption. Say she needs the sanitarium in El Paso. Dry air, proper care. Costs $50 a month and I only make 23. I know. I'll pack my things. Be gone within the hour. I just wanted to tell you first. Before you had to tell Sam, give me that much dignity. Kate studied this man, this father who'd stolen to save his daughter, who'd kept careful records of his theft because even when you did wrong, you could do it with some measure of honor. Mr. Bennett knows. Tom's face went white. How long? Since yesterday, since I brought Annie home. Then why am I still here? Why hasn't he? Because he's decided to help. Sanitarium costs $50 a month. He's giving you $100. First month in deposit. You'll stay. Work to pay back what you stole, but Annie comes first. Tom couldn't speak. His mouth opened. Closed. Tears ran down his weathered face and he didn't even try to stop them. Why, he finally managed. Why would he do that? Because good men make bad choices when desperate, and because this ranch is built on second chances. Kate left him there, went back to the kitchen. Annie was helping peel potatoes, her small hands working careful. She'd stopped coughing for now. The rest and food were helping. But it wouldn't be enough. Without the sanitarium, without real treatment, the consumption would take her. Maybe not today, maybe not next month, but soon. The storm hit just before dark. Kate had seen Texas storms before in her short time here, knew how they could blow up from nothing, how the sky would turn green-black and the air would taste like metal. But this one was different. This one felt personal. Thunder rolled across the prairie like God-moving furniture. The barometer dropped so fast Kate thought it might be broken. Wind picked up, sending dust devils spinning across the yard. Storm's going to be a big one, Sam said, appearing in the kitchen doorway, already wet from the first fat raindrops. Need to secure the garden. Kate looked at the garden through the window. 3 months of work. Sarah Moss's leftover plants plus Kate's new additions. Tomato plants just setting fruit. Beans climbing poles. Squash spreading wide, herbs in neat rows. If they lost it now, that was weeks of food gone, weeks of work wasted. And more than that, it was giving up on something that was just starting to produce. The tomatoes are just setting fruit, Kate said. We lose them now, that's 6 weeks growing wasted. Then we don't lose them. They went out together into the building wind. The rain was coming harder now. Kate grabbed canvas tarps from the shed. Sam brought the glass cloches they used for protecting young plants. There weren't enough for everything. Kate made quick decisions, tomatoes first. Early fruit meant fresh food weeks before anything else. She settled glass domes over the strongest plants, weighted them with stones. Her hands slipped on wet rocks. That old split in her palm aching with the pressure changes in the air. The bean poles won't on hold, Kate shouted over the rising wind. Sam was already moving. Danny, get the sledge. They worked opposite sides of the bean row, Kate holding poles straight while Sam drove stakes, Danny wrapping twine to secure the vines. The rain soaked through Kate's dress in seconds, cold despite the summer season. Lightning flashed white, thunder immediate behind it. Too close. One of the glass cloches lifted despite the stones, flew through the air like a weapon, shattered against the fence. The tomato plant beneath bent nearly horizontal. Kate dropped to her knees in the mud. No thought, just action. She pushed the plant upright, mounded wet earth around its base with both hands. Glass shards from the broken cloche bit into her palms through the mud. Blood mixed with rain, washed pink, washed away. She kept packing earth, building the mound higher, willing that plant to stand against the wind. Kate, Sam's voice urgent now, frightened, she kept working. The plant needed support, needed backbone. If she could just get enough earth around it. Strong hands under her arms, lifting. Sam half carried, half dragged her to the kitchen. They tumbled inside together. The door slammed behind them hard enough to rattle every dish on the shelves. Water streamed from Kate's hair, her clothes. Blood seeped from both palms. Dozens of small cuts from the glass. Her hands looked like she'd tried to catch knives. Everyone needs coffee, she said. Started to stand. Sam caught her shoulder, gentle but firm. Your hands can't hold a coffee pot. Watch me. But he was right. When she tried to grip the handle, her palms screamed. Blood made everything slippery. The door burst open again. Will, Danny, 3 others crowded in, all soaked through. The bunkhouse had a stove, but no supplies. The main house kitchen was where you went when weather turned bad. Annie appeared from the bedroom where Kate had told her to wait. The girl's eyes went wide, seeing all these wet, dirty men tracking mud across the floor. But she didn't run, didn't hide, just stood there, taking it in. Ma'am, Tom appeared behind the others. You're hurt. Just cuts. I'm fine. But Sam was already gathering supplies. Water basin, clean cloths, Will's sewing basket because they'd need needles to get the glass splinters out. He pulled a chair close, too close for propriety, but propriety had drowned in the storm. Sit, he said, not a request. Kate sat. Sam took her hands in his, gentle but thorough. Each sliver of glass caught the lamplight like tiny stars. Some deep, some just surface scratches. Blood welled from a dozen places. He worked with the same careful attention he'd shown teaching her to frame corners. Each piece of glass found and pulled with Kate's own sewing needle. It hurt. God, it hurt. But Kate didn't make a sound, just watched his face as he worked. The concentration lines between his eyes. The way his jaw tightened when he pulled a particularly deep shard free. Why, he asked quietly, just for her. Why risk this for tomatoes? Because once something starts producing, you protect it. Otherwise, what was the point of planting? Sam's hand stilled on hers. He looked up, met her eyes. Something passed between them. Unnamed but real as the storm. The door crashed open. Tom stumbled in, wind shoving him from behind. Clothes torn, blood on his face from a flying branch. Barn's secure, he gasped. Fought the door closed. Thunder shook the house. The window Kate had been watching through cracked. Spider-web patterns spreading from an impact point. Everyone froze, watching, waiting to see if it would hold or shatter. Away from the glass, Sam said. Moved Kate with his body, shielded her. The window held. barely, but it held. Then the damaged window gave way, burst inward in a spray of glass and rain and wind. The storm invaded the kitchen like something alive and angry. Everyone moved at once. Will grabbing a tablecloth to cover the opening. Danny pushing the table away from the broken window. Sam still shielding Kate with his body. They fought the cloth into place, nailed it with whatever came to hand. The wind tried to tear it away, made it belly in and out like something breathing. Tom stood apart from the group, watching Kate. Their eyes met again, his mouth open like he wanted to speak. Closed. He turned away, but not before Kate saw it. Desperation deep as a well. The storm peaked, roared over them, then passed. Still raining, but the violence was moving on. The kitchen felt smaller with all of them in it, warmer despite the broken window. Kate looked at her hands, bandaged now and strips torn from clean dish towels. They throbbed in rhythm with her heartbeat, but the bleeding had stopped. Through the gap beside the makeshift curtain, she could see the garden. Bean poles down despite their work. Squash plants stripped bare. But there, one tomato plant still standing under its broken glass cloche, the one she'd mounded earth around, still bent but standing. Your plant made it, Annie said quietly. The girl had been so silent, Kate had almost forgotten she was there. Some things are worth protecting, Kate said. Annie coughed, just once, but everyone heard it. Tom moved to his daughter's side, put his hand on her thin shoulder, the gesture of a man who'd already lost too much and knew he might lose more. Will brought whiskey, no coffee to soften it, poured shots for everyone who wanted them. Kate took hers, drank it straight. The burn felt good, felt alive. Mrs. Hayes, Annie said, are you going to be all right? Kate looked at this child, this brave dying child who worried about others instead of herself, who'd lived in an abandoned wagon without complaint, who'd watched her father work himself to exhaustion trying to save her and never once asked for more than she was given. I'm going to be fine, Annie. Better than fine. Sam stood, walked to a cabinet, pulled out a metal box Kate had seen before, opened it, counted out bills. Tom, he said, come here. Tom approached like a man walking to his own hanging. This is $100, first month at the sanitarium and deposit. You'll leave tomorrow. Take Annie to El Paso, get her settled, then come back and work off what you stole. Tom stared at the money. I can't. You can and you will. Your daughter needs treatment. You need work. The ranch needs someone who owns his mistakes and makes them right. But I stole from you. I lied. And now you're going to fix it. That's how second chances work, Tom. You don't get them by being perfect. You get them by being willing to do better. Tom took the money with shaking hands, looked at Kate, at Sam, at the other cowboys who'd heard everything and stood quiet, bearing witness to mercy given and accepted. I'll pay back every cent. I know, Sam said. Now get some rest. Long ride tomorrow. The storm was definitely passing, just regular rain now, stars beginning to show between clouds. The men dispersed to check on damage. Tom took Annie back to the small room Kate had given here. Will went to secure the barn one more time. Kate and Sam stood alone in the damaged kitchen. Glass still littered the floor. The window gaped behind its cloth covering. Tomorrow's work waited everywhere she looked. You knew he'd keep the money, Sam said. Knew he wouldn't run. Hoped. Men who keep records of their thefts aren't lost complete. Sam started to speak. Stopped. Started again. Kate, there's something I need to tell you. Before he could continue, hoofbeats outside. Multiple horses, coming fast even through the rain. They both moved to the window, peered out through gaps in the cloth. 4 riders, stopping at the gate, discussing something, then turning toward the house. The rider in front weaved in his saddle. Even from here, even through rain, Kate knew. Frank Dalton had returned, and he'd brought friends. Kate moved to the shotgun behind the door, lifted it carefully with her bandaged hands. The weight felt wrong with the cloth wrapping, but she could manage if needed. Through the window, she watched the riders dismount. Sloppy, drunk movements. Frank stumbling, catching himself on his horse's neck. Sam went out alone. No weapon visible. Just walked into the rain like a man going to check the fence line. Kate moved the shotgun to the window, barrel resting on the sill. Will appeared at the other window with his old Colt Navy. Danny had found a rifle somewhere. They waited. Evening, Frank. Sam's voice carried clear through the rain. Bit late for visiting. Came to collect what's mine. Frank Swade pointed at the house. His words slurred together like they'd been stored in whiskey. 8 years I worked this place. 8 years. And you give my share to some woman. You forfeited your share when you stole from me. Prove it. Frank laughed. Ugly sound, like something breaking. Can't, can you? But I got proof of something else. He pulled papers from inside his coat, waved them overhead. Rain soaked through immediately, but he didn't seem to notice. Partnership papers, filed yesterday at the courthouse. You, that woman, and the Scot. My job. My position given away. Kate's stomach dropped. The papers weren't public until Monday. How did Frank know Henderson? She said aloud. The banker told him. Sam heard through the window. His shoulders tightened, but he didn't turn around. Those papers are legal, Frank. You've got no claim here. Legal. Frank spat tobacco juice into the mud. You know what else is legal? Accidents. Ranch accidents happen all the time. Barn fires, poisoned wells, cattle scattered to hell and gone. One of Frank's companions shifted nervous. Young man named Carol. Frank, we came to talk, not threaten. Shut up, Carol. Frank took a step forward. Nearly fell. Caught himself. I'm talking to my former partner, Simon. We were partners, Sam, building this place. You were my foreman, paid wages for work done, that's all. That all? Frank's voice went high, wounded. Sarah treated me like family, fed me at her table. When she died, what did I get? Nothing. Not even a mention in her will. Kate understood then. This wasn't about money, not really. It was about belonging, about being counted as family and coming up short. About 8 years of loyalty meaning nothing when it mattered most. She set down the shotgun, walked out the door before anyone could stop her. The rain hit cold, soaked through her bandages immediately. Frank turned, saw her, smiled mean. The abandoned bride herself, come to defend your new kingdom. Come to make you an offer. That stopped him. His companions looked confused. Sam started to speak, but Kate raised her hand slightly. Trust me. What kind of offer? Frank asked. You say you're owed. 8 years building this place. Fine. Let's talk numbers. Kate pulled out the small ledger she'd grabbed from inside. Rain spotted the pages, but the ink held. 8 years as foreman, standard wages plus room and board. That's approximately $960 you were paid. That's not... You stole $600. We have proof. Morrison's records, bank records, your own signatures. She opened the ledger despite rain making the pages curl. But there's something else. Frank waited, swaying. 3 months ago, you sold cattle on the side. 15 head to a buyer from Fort Worth. Thought you were clever. Marked them as dead from disease in the ranch books. She showed him the page. But you forgot. Dead cattle still leave bones. Bones that get counted and burned. Will counts everything. There are no bones, Frank. Frank's face went white under the dirt and stubble. 15 head at $30 each. That's $450 plus the $600 from petty theft. You owe this ranch $1,050. You can't prove. I can and will. Sheriff Thompson's cousin bought those cattle. Has a bill of sale with your signature. That was a lie. The sheriff's cousin hadn't bought cattle from Frank. But Frank didn't know that. Couldn't verify it tonight. And Kate was betting he wouldn't stick around long enough to check. She closed the ledger. Here's my offer, Frank. Leave tonight. Never come back. We write off the debt as severance pay you think you're owed. And if I don't... Sheriff arrives Monday morning with a warrant. Texas takes cattle theft serious. That's 5 to 10 years minimum. Frank's companions backed toward their horses. Carol spoke up. Frank, we should go. This ain't worth prison. Shut up. Frank pulled his pistol, waved it wild. Rain ran off the barrel. Nobody's going anywhere until... Will's voice came from behind Kate, calm, steady. Drop it, friend. Frank turned, saw Will in the doorway with his Colt Navy, Danny beside him with the rifle. The other ranch hands spreading out from the bunkhouse. All armed. You're outnumbered, Frank, Sam said quiet. Drunk and outnumbered. Put the gun away. Frank's hands shook. The pistol wavered between Kate and Sam. Rain ran off his hat brim, made everything slick and dangerous. One wrong move and someone would die. Maybe Kate, maybe Sam, maybe Frank himself. "This ain't over," Frank said finally. "You think you're safe, you think she'll stay." He looked at Kate specifically. "Women like her don't stay. They take what they can get and move on." "No, Frank." Kate's voice came clear, calm. "That's what you did. I'm building something." She said it gentle. Not mocking, not angry, just stating fact. And somehow that was worse than any accusation could have been. Frank lowered the gun, slowly, not because he was defeated, because Kate had given him something. A narrative he could accept, forced out by a lying woman, betrayed by ungrateful friends. He could live with that story, could tell it to himself in whatever town he landed in next. He holstered the gun clumsily, mounted his horse on the third try. His companions were already backing away, eager to be gone. "I'll be seeing you," Frank said, looking down at them all gathered there in the rain. But his voice was less certain now, less convinced of his own righteousness. They rode off into the darkness. Kate stood in the rain, bandages, soaked hands throbbing, legs shaking now that danger had passed. Sam moved beside him. "The sheriff's cousin, bought cattle 3 months ago." "Not from Frank, from the Henderson ranch." Kate turned to face him. "But Frank doesn't know that." Will laughed, sudden, surprised. "You lied. I negotiated with facts he couldn't verify tonight." They went back inside. Towels, whiskey straight, no coffee to soften it. Kate's teeth chattered. Not from cold, from the aftermath of fear. "He'll figure it out," Sam said. "When he sobers up, he'll know you played him. By then, he'll be halfway to San Antonio if he's smart. He's not coming back." "No, because I gave him a story he can tell himself. That he's the victim, not the villain. He'll ride away feeling righteous instead of criminal." Kate unwrapped her soaked bandages. The cuts had opened again. Fresh blood mixing with rainwater. Sam brought clean cloth, rewrapped her hands with the same careful attention as before. "You took a hell of a risk walking out there." "Calculated risk. Frank's a coward when sober, dangerous when drunk, but only to those he sees as weak. I needed him to see me as an equal threat." Will brought something, a folded paper, handed it to Sam. "This came late tonight. Special courier. Forgot with all the..." He gestured at the broken window, the wet floor, the general chaos. Sam opened it, read. His face changed. He handed it to Kate. "Legal document, official seal of Judge Morton's court. Robert Morrison and Sarah Morrison versus Catherine Hayes. Breach of contract. Seeking damages for expenses incurred bringing aforementioned Catherine Hayes to Texas under false pretenses. Stage ticket $40. Room and board promised $20. Emotional distress $100. Total $160. Judge Morton requests all parties Monday morning, 9 o'clock sharp." Kate almost laughed. Would have if it wasn't so pathetic. Emotional distress. "He wrote me 7 letters, made promises, then married another woman before I arrived." But there was more. She kept reading. Frank Dalton versus Catherine Hayes, defamation and threats, hearing scheduled concurrent with Morrison case, and a third document. Bennett Ranch versus Frank Dalton, theft, countersuit filed Saturday by Henderson on Sam's behalf. 3 cases, all Monday morning, all tangled together like barbed wire. "This is a mess," Will said. "This is Henderson covering himself," Kate corrected. "He filed the countersuit to look helpful, to hide the fact that he's been helping Frank steal for months." She looked at Sam. "Did you ask him to file this?" "No, which means he's scared, which means he knows something." Something. The rain had stopped, just dripping now from the eaves. Through the broken window, stars showed clear. Tomorrow would dawn bright, show all the storm damage plain, but also show what survived. Kate needed sleep, needed to think, needed to figure out how to stand before Judge Morton and explain why she'd come to Texas expecting to marry a man who changed his mind. How to prove Frank had stolen without proving she'd lied about the cattle. How to win when the deck was stacked against her. But first, she needed to tell Sam something she'd been holding back since the day they met. "I need to tell you about my past," she said. "Before Monday, before court, You need to know. She pulled out her mother's ledger, opened to the back page where she'd hidden it. The photograph. Herself 5 years younger, standing beside a tall man in a good suit. My husband, Thomas Hayes, died 3 years ago of typhoid. Sam studied the photograph. Why hide it? Because men want fresh starts, not used goods. Because widows are bad luck or easy marks, depending who's asking. She took the photo back. Because I wanted to choose who knew my past and when. She touched the image gently. Thomas was a good man, taught me bookkeeping, treated me fair. When he died, his brother inherited everything. Law said a wife had no claim without children. So you came west. So I came west, looking for another chance at something permanent. She met his eyes, found it, just not how I expected. Sam picked up the photograph, handed it back carefully. We all got histories, things we carry. Doesn't change what we're building now. Through the window, dawn was starting. Pink on the horizon, the storm had washed everything clean, left puddles reflecting sky. There's something else, Sam said. He went to the cabinet, pulled out a small wooden box. Sarah left this, said to give it to the woman who made the kitchen home again. Kate opened it, inside a simple gold ring, not a wedding band, a signet ring with SM engraved, Sarah Moss. She wore it 50 years, her mother's before that, kitchen queens she called them, women who fed families, held houses together through trouble. Kate slipped it on her right hand. It fit like it had been waiting. I'm not Sarah. No, you're Kate Hayes. That's enough. More than enough. Before either could say more, Danny appeared at the door. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a wagon coming. Looks like the Hendersons. Sure enough, the banker's fancy buggy approaching. Mrs. Henderson held a parasol despite the early hour. Mr. Henderson drove looking like a man headed to his own funeral. They met the Hendersons in the yard. Mrs. Henderson stayed in the buggy, mouth pursed. Mr. Henderson climbed down, handed Sam an envelope. From Judge Morton, arrived late last night by special courier. Sam opened it, read, handed it to Kate. Same cases listed, but one addition. Henderson Bank to provide full accounting of Bennett Ranch deposits for past year. Discrepancies to be explained under oath. Henderson shifted uncomfortable. There's more, he coughed. Frank Dalton. Carol and the others are spreading word that he might have had an accident last night. Said his horse was spooked. But no one's found a body. Just rumors. Silence. Complete. Even the birds seemed to stop. When, Sam asked? Sometime last night, after he left here. Horse threw him 5 miles from town. Broke his neck. Kate felt the words settle over her like a shroud. Frank Dalton. Dead. The man she'd just confronted, just threatened, just sent riding off into the rain. Mrs. Henderson spoke from the buggy, sharp voice cutting through the morning. This is what comes of stirring up trouble, Mrs. Hayes. He was drunk, Sam said, riding in the rain. It was an accident. That's what it looks like, Henderson said. But his companions, Carol and the others, they're saying you threatened him. Ran him off. He was upset, not paying attention. We did not threaten him. Kate's voice came out steel. We defended ourselves against an armed, intoxicated man making threats on our property. With 8 witnesses. I'm not accusing Henderson said quick. Just saying what they're saying. Judge will want to hear it. Then Henderson did something unexpected. He glanced back at his wife, saw she was occupied, straightening her parasol, leaned in close. Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Bennett, I need to tell you something. Before court, before the judge asks questions I can't lie about. He pulled them aside, away from his wife's hearing. Frank paid me for information about the ranch, about partnership papers, about cattle sales. $20 each time I told him something. Kate had suspected, but hearing it confirmed was different. How long? 6 months, since my wife. He stopped, started again. My wife has gambling debts. I needed money. Frank offered to pay. Sam's face showed controlled fury, jaw clenched so tight Kate could see the muscle jumping. You sold us out. I know, and I'm sorry, but I came here because I can help with the lawsuit. He pulled out another envelope, opened it. Inside loan papers. Robert Morrison came to me 3 months ago, Wanted to borrow money to bring a mail-order bride from Illinois, but he never intended to bring you Mrs. Hayes. He intended to take your travel money and disappear. Henderson showed the papers. He borrowed $40, said it was for your stage ticket, but he never bought a ticket. He gambled the money away. Then when you showed up anyway, he panicked. Why tell us this? Kate took the papers. Because I've helped enough people do wrong things. Time I helped someone do right. Henderson looked at her direct. I'll testify. Tomorrow, tell the judge everything. About Robert's fraud, about Frank's theft, about my part in all of it. Mrs. Henderson called from the buggy. Harold, we need to go. Henderson climbed back up, gathered the reins. Monday morning, 9 o'clock. I'll be there. They watched the buggy roll away. Can we trust him? Kate asked. Man who's betrayed once will betray again, Will said. He'd been listening from the porch. Maybe, Kate said. Or maybe a man who's carried guilt long enough finally wants to set it down. Sunday morning, the ranch stirred to life despite the short night. Cowboys checking damage from the storm, cleaning up debris. Kate found Annie in the kitchen trying to help despite her small size and persistent cough. Child, you should be resting. I want to help, ma'am. You've been so kind to me. Kate knelt down, eye level with the girl. Annie, how would you like to go to a place where you could get better? Where doctors could help your cough? Annie's eyes went wide. The sanitarium, Pa talks about it sometimes when he thinks I'm asleep. Yes, your father is taking you there tomorrow, to El Paso. But that costs money, lots of money. Mr. Bennett is helping, so am I. So are all the men here, because that's what family does. Annie threw her arms around Kate's neck, held tight. This child who'd been so brave for so long, finally allowing herself to hope. Tom appeared in the doorway, saw his daughter hugging Kate. His face showed everything he couldn't say. Gratitude, relief, the lifting of a burden he'd carried alone too long. Thank you, he mouthed. Kate just nodded. Sam found Kate in his garden later that morning, surveying the damage, most of the bean poles down. Squash plants stripped, but that one tomato plant still stood, bent but alive. It survived, Sam said. Some things are worth protecting. He was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled something from his pocket. A ring, plain gold, worn thin from years of wear. This was my mother's wedding band. Been carrying it 3 months, since the day I found you building with broken boards. Kate's breath caught. Seems like we should stop building separate, start building together. That's a proposal. That's a practical suggestion. We're already partners in business, already working side by side, already trusting each other with everything that matters. And what about the rest? The part that's not practical? Sam moved closer, close enough she could smell coffee and soap and rain on his clothes. The rest grows slow but sturdy, like oak trees. Not pretty at first, but strong enough to weather storms. Kate looked at the ring, at him, at the ranch spread below. 3 weeks ago, she'd stood on that Willow Creek platform with nothing but a carpet bag and a Winchester. Now she had a home, about people who depended on her, a man offering her a future instead of empty promises. She took the ring. It sat next to Sarah's signet ring, like they'd always been meant to share that finger. The judge, Robert, the town gossip. Won't matter if we're married. Can't sue a woman whose husband is standing right there. Can't gossip about propriety when there's wedding papers filed. But that's not why you're asking. No, I'm asking because you took broken boards and made shelter, took a failing ranch and made it profitable, took suspicious men and made them family. His hand found hers, careful of the bandages. Because you're the right materials for building something permanent. Yes, the word came easy, felt right, like the final piece of a puzzle sliding into place. From the house, Will called out, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Hayes, breakfast is ready. They walked back together, not touching yet, but the space between them felt different now, charged with possibility. The Cowboys gathered in the kitchen, Annie helping serve despite Kate's protests. When everyone was seated, Sam stood. Boys, change of plans. We're getting married this morning. You're all witnesses. Danny dropped his biscuit. What? Will smiled wide. Congratulations. Tom spoke from the doorway where he stood with Annie. I'd be honored to stand witness, if you'll have me. Every family needs someone who knows the cost of staying, Kate said. You're welcome. They ate quickly, then everyone scattered to clean up, put on their Sunday clothes. Even the horses seemed to sense something important was happening. The small church stood at the end of Main Street, paint peeling, but the cross on top still stood straight. Reverend Collins answered Sam's knock, surprised but willing. It's unusual, a Sunday morning, short notice. But, he looked at Kate, at Sam, at the 8 cowboys standing behind them like an honor guard. I've married worse matches on longer planning. Come in. The ceremony was simple, traditional. Kate's voice steady as she spoke the words. I, Catherine Hayes, take you, Samuel Bennett. Sam's voice low but clear. I, Samuel Bennett, take you, Catherine Hayes. The rings exchanged, Margaret Bennett's wedding band joining Sarah Moss's signet ring on Kate's finger, a borrowed ring on Sam's hand until they could get a proper one made. By the power vested in me by the state of Texas, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Reverend Collins smiled. You may kiss your bride. Sam's kiss was brief, proper for church, but real, with promise of more later when they had privacy. Outside, townspeople stared. Word had spread about Frank's death, about the wedding, about the lawsuit scheduled for tomorrow. Mrs. Henderson stood with a group of women, mouths moving. Kate could imagine what they were saying. She walked over, not angry, just firm. Mrs. Henderson, you're welcome to attend our hearing tomorrow. Judge Morton will hear the full truth about Robert's fraud, about Frank's theft, about your husband's complicity. She paused. Or you can choose to be civil now, and we forget certain financial irregularities in Mr. Henderson's banking records. Henderson pulled his wife away. Quick. Monday morning arrived too fast. Kate dressed careful, hair perfect, every button fastened, armor made of respectability. Judge Morton's chambers were smaller than she'd expected. Just an office, really, but it felt like a courtroom when you were standing before the bench explaining why you'd been abandoned in Texas. Present Judge Morton weathered and fair-eyed despite being Robert's cousin. Sam and Kate, Sarah Morrison looking scared and small. Sheriff T.R. Thompson, Henderson, Carol and Frank's other companions who'd come to report the accident. This is a mess, the judge said. Let's untangle it. Mrs. Bennett is it? Mrs. Bennett now. Yes, Your Honor. Married yesterday. Judge Morton raised an eyebrow but nodded. That simplifies one issue. Can't sue a married woman without her husband's consent. He looked at Sam. Mr. Bennett, do you consent to this lawsuit from your wife's former correspondent? No, Your Honor, and he's not here to press it anyway. The judge shuffled papers. Mrs. Morrison, you asked to testify. Proceed. Sarah stood. Her hands shook, but her voice came clear. Your Honor, my husband Robert never intended to marry Mrs. Hayes. He wrote those letters to get money from her. $40, he said, was for her travel. But he gambled it away instead. She pulled out papers, letter drafts in Robert's handwriting, each one more elaborate than the last, building a story that was pure fiction. When she arrived anyway, he panicked, came up with this lawsuit to try to get money from her, to pay his debts. Where is Mr. Morrison now? Gone, Your Honor. Left for California Saturday morning. Took everything we had. Left me with debts. Sarah's voice broke. I'm testifying because what he did was wrong. And because Mrs. Hayes, Mrs. Bennett, she deserves better than lies. Kate felt something loosen in her chest. Gratitude for this woman she'd never expected to help her. Henderson testified next. About the loan Robert never used for Kate's ticket. About paying Frank for information. About 6 months of betrayal. The bank will make full restitution for any losses from Mr. Dalton's theft, Henderson said, and I'll be more careful about client confidentiality in future. Kate presented her evidence, the ranch ledgers showing Frank's theft, store records from Morrison, the careful documentation of every stolen penny. Carol testified about Frank. We went to the ranch, yes, but Frank was drunk, pulled a gun. Mrs. Bennett talked him down peaceful, offered him a way out. He chose to ride off angry. Nobody threatened him, nobody ran him off. He was drunk and riding too fast and his horse threw him. That's all. The judge read through everything, studied the numbers, the signatures, the timeline. Robert Morrison's suit is dismissed, fraud plain as day. If he returns to Texas, there's a warrant waiting. He looked at Kate. Mrs. Bennett, you have my apologies for what you endured. He turned to Henderson. Mr. Henderson, your bank will make full restitution, and you'll be more careful about client confidentiality in future. Consider this your only warning. Then to Carol. As for Mr. Dalton's alleged accident, I see no evidence of any incident. Case dismissed for lack of substance. Outside the courthouse, Sarah approached Kate one last time. Thank you for giving me courage to tell the truth. What will you do now? Go back to family in Missouri. Start over. She smiled, weak but real. Like you did. They were walking to the buckboard when hoofbeats sounded. Fast, everyone tensed, hands going to weapons that weren't there because you didn't bring guns to court. A rider appeared, covered in mud, horse-lathered and exhausted. Frank Dalton. Kate's breath caught. The man who'd ridden off in fury and rain. Coming back, but he wasn't threatening, hands up, peaceful. He dismounted slow. I'm not here for trouble, Frank said. Sam's hand went to where his gun would be. Then why are you here? Frank looked at Kate. Because you were right about everything. He pulled out a money bag, heavy with coins. $1,050. First payment. Sold my horse, my saddle, everything I own. Frank, Sam started it. I rode 2 hours south before I realized I was running from being a victim. But I'm not a victim. I'm a thief. He looked Sam in the eye. 8 years you treated me fair, paid me, gave me a home. Sarah treated me like family, and I repaid you by stealing. Why come back, Kate asked. Because I do not want to spend the rest of my life running, and because... He pulled out more papers. This is documentation of every penny I took. When, why, how much. Sam took the money, counted it. This is exact. Interest included. I'll work, anywhere. Send money every month until it's paid back. Sam looked at Kate. Silent question. She understood. This was her decision too now. They were partners. Can you build? Kate asked. Frank looked confused. Yes, I know construction. The ranch needs a new bunkhouse. Will Cooper is hiring a crew. Could use someone with experience. Understanding dawned. You're giving me work. Standard wages minus payments on your debt. Take 2 years to pay off. But when it's done, you'll be clean. Why help me? Sam extended his hand. Because this ranch is built on second chances. Kate's, Tom's, Will's, now yours. One condition, no drinking, not one drop. Frank took the hand, shaking. No drinking, I swear it. Then welcome back. 6 months later, spring 1883, the Bennett Ranch had transformed. New paint on the main house, garden flourishing tomato plants heavy with fruit, new barn roof built by Frank's crew, bunkhouse expanded and solid. Kate stood in her kitchen cooking breakfast for 10 now. Annie helped, fully recovered from her time at the sanitarium. Healthy and strong and talking about becoming a teacher someday. Sam entered, kissed her forehead. Casual intimacy of marriage. Cattle counts up, 40 head more than last fall. Books balance perfect. Henderson's not skimming anymore. Will's asking about bringing his sister from Scotland. She's widowed too, needs a fresh start. There's room, always room for someone starting over. Danny burst in. Mrs. Bennett, there's a woman at the station. Looks lost, like you did when you arrived. Kate and Sam exchanged a look. Understanding passed between them without words. They drove the buckboard to town, found a woman standing on that same platform where Kate had stood 6 months ago. 26 maybe. Nervous, carpet bag clutched tight, eyes scanning for someone who wasn't there. Kate climbed down, approached gentle. Miss Eleanor Price, I was supposed to meet someone, but he didn't. Her voice broke. He's not here. Kate felt time collapse. Saw herself 6 months ago, abandoned, desperate, armed only with determination and a Winchester. I know. Come with us. We have work if you want it. Or just a safe place to figure things out. Eleanor looked suspicious, scared. Why would you help me? Kate showed her left hand, 2 rings catching sunlight. Because someone helped me once, when I had nothing but broken boards and bleeding hands. They loaded Eleanor's bag into the wagon, rode back toward the ranch. Eleanor in the wagon bed looking hopeful and terrified in equal measure. Sam beside Kate, steady presence. Ranch visible ahead. Kate thought about the journey, from that platform to here. From abandoned woman to wife partner, matriarch of a family built from broken pieces. Her hands on the reins showed scars from glass, from nails, from building with whatever materials came to hand. But they were strong hands now, capable hands, hands that had protected what mattered and built what lasted. The tomato plant from that first storm still grew in the garden. Oldest plant there, bent but productive. Proof that what you protect survives, that what you refuse to abandon becomes your foundation. Through the kitchen window she could see movement. Tom teaching Annie how to keep books. Frank measuring lumber for the new schoolhouse. Will directing his sister Margaret as she learned the garden. Cowboys gathered for breakfast knowing it would be good because Kate was cooking. Family. Not the one she'd been born to. Not the one she'd lost with Thomas. But the one she'd built. The one she'd chosen. The one that had chosen her back. Sam's hand found hers on the reins. What are you thinking? That I came to Texas with $347 and a promise that turned to dust. Built a shelter from broken boards. Built a business from chaos. Built a family from strangers. Built a marriage from respect and trust. She looked at him. Built a life from nothing. We built it, Sam corrected. Together. Yes, together. The ranch grew larger as they approached. Solid. Permanent. Built to last, not because they'd had the right materials, but because they'd known what to do with whatever they had. Eleanor Price sat quiet in the wagon bed, watching, learning, about to start her own journey from broken to whole, from alone to family, from nothing to something worth protecting. And Kate would help her, the way Sam had helped Kate, the way Will had supported Tom, the way mercy and justice had merged to give Frank a second chance. Because that's what they did here. They built, not just houses or businesses or partnerships. They built lives. They built hope. They built second chances into something permanent. Sometimes the truest stories are about folks who didn't set out to be remarkable. They just refused to quit when quitting would have been the sensible thing to do. This wasn't a tale of grand adventure. It was a story of small choices that added up to a life, the way most lives really are when you think about it proper. And sometimes the best structures are built from whatever materials come to hand. Sometimes they're built to last. Sometimes they become home. The wagon rolled through the gate. Home. Eleanor's new beginning. Kate's continued story. A place where broken things found purpose. Where abandon became chosen. Where nothing became everything. Built from broken boards. Standing strong. Permanent as the Texas sky.